Okay, what I'm working on again is this 2006 ignition lock cylinder, and this thing is supposed to be staked in. This retainer clip is supposed to be staked in at both ends, and somebody has, for some reason, they have staked it across here, here, and they put a bow in it to where it can't stay down there. So what I got to do is I've got a new lock cylinder kit. That's the part numbers, and I'm going to take this one apart and get the tumblers out of there and write down the numbers that's stamped on each one of them. I've got a pad of paper with my lines laid out. There's going to be 9 of them, and I'm going to take this out, and like I said, I'm going to count the, yeah, see, that wasn't in there at all hardly, and that thing should be in there sufficiently, and it just isn't. Somebody did a terrible job there. Terrible job. Let's see if I can get all that stuff off there. You can see the tumblers down in there. Somebody's put in new springs and new tumblers and just messed the whole job up. But in order to get them out, you have to take the key out. What I generally do is take a piece of duct tape or masking tape or anything like that, and I put across it and turn it upside down and tap it a few times. That way, if they come out, it'll stick to the tape, and if they don't, they should be right up there near the top. And they're not, especially. So this is going to be fun. Yeah, this is going to be fun. So what I got to do now is I've got to use a series of picks to lift those things out of there. And I always start, the piece that's closest to the collar that the key goes in is number 1 for me. And like I said, there's going to be a number on there somewhere. And you have to take and wipe these things off. And let's see, there's a tiny number 1 on there. So I write that on my pad, and I put the tumbler next to it, or the wafer, whatever you want to call it. And I move on to the next one. This one's got a 3 on it. slowly get that one up. And there's our third wafer. We got a 1 again. So that's 3. That's 1, 2, 3. So go to the fourth one now. Get it out. Oops. Number 3. Let's see, got a number 2 there. A little bit tricky to get out. Got number 4 there. So number 2. Oops. Had to lift the keys up a little bit, or the tumblers, but I used the key to do it. The thing that gets me is this thing's got new wafers in there, or tumblers, and the springs look like they were probably new. That retainer bar looked like it was new, and you don't get those things just anywhere. Chances are he had a locksmith do this, because I don't think this part looks new. It looks like it's been on there a while. It's got some wear on it. So chances are they paid a locksmith to do this, and the locksmith should have known better than to use the technique that he used to put that locking bar in place. Had to go to the very last one to get it out first. At least I think that's what I'm doing. Well, that one's in there pretty good. I forgot sometimes you can stick your little probe in there and rake across them and get them moving too. Well, there, we got that one, so getting close. And that one says 4. Now we'll get the last one out, hopefully. Finally, it wants to pop up. And that one's a 2. So we have our code wrote down. We got all the tumbler wafers sitting right on top of them in case something goes wrong. Just do that out of abundance of caution. Now we take the new kit. We got instructions, but we about usually throw those away because we've done this so many times before. Now we set this up the way we started with the other one, the key in to the left, to my left. And then what I generally do is the tumblers or wafers are all numbered, come in numbered bags. Of course, that's the retainer. And what I generally do is I pick out whatever number we have the most of, and it looks like we got, it's not going to be so bad. We'll start with the ones. 1 is the first number. And 1 will go in the first slot. And then 1 goes in the third slot. It's 1, 2, 3. So we're in the third slot, and you got to push them in there a little bit so they won't just accidentally fall out on you. And see this, there's a bar, the locking bar right there. You don't want to have your thumb on it, because if you do, you can't push these on. So those are the ones. Next ones up will be 3s. Set that bag to the side. And the number 3s go in the second and fourth slot. So there's a second. going in there a little bit crookedy. Hey. There we go, got her straight. Now the 3s also go in the 4 slot. So we got 1 through 4 filled up. Put that bag back there. Now the next one will be 2s. Got our 2s. That goes in that slot. And then we got to skip a slot. So let's get this one. That one's in there. Now we're going to put it 2 in the last one. And then we put those aside. Then we got to get the number 4s out. And each one you put in adds a layer of security. In all honesty, you could leave a couple of them out or more, and you could still, it would still work, but you would lose the security because you could just virtually stick a screwdriver in there after that and turn it on. So we're putting a 4 right there. And then the last 4 we're going to stick right in here. And we're going to push all these down a little bit, gently. And you'll notice, you see that bar is sticking out pretty solidly right there. Well, when we stick the key in, that bar will go in. You got to make sure the springs would keep these pushed against it. And we have to go in here and pretend we're springs. And make sure that drops in. And that really does feel like it should drop in more than that. Well, and for some reason we got a fellow that's got a key with 2 different cuts on it. And that bar is in there pretty good now, so we should be able to go ahead and put our springs in. And to put the springs in, you can go ahead and take the key back out and then push these in a little bit so you have plenty of room for the springs. And they do send you a bag of 10 springs, so if you lose one, you got the safety net there. So now let me see if I can get these out. Well, that's not going to work good to put them in them grooves. Okay, so I think that's all of them. So now we'll just take and stick one spring at a time in there and push down on it. You got to be careful when you let off that the spring doesn't shoot back out. I may have to take my gloves off to finish this up. And I'm going to give it a shot. I just like things being a little bit more difficult for some reason. Gives you a little challenge. Okay, so those three are in there. There's 4. Now I got to separate these springs out. They're all sticking to each other. Okay, now I got them separated. Worried that one of them might have shot off. Felt like it bounced up and hit my arm. And the springs are wanting to stick together again. Alright, I'm going to stick the last spring in. And like I said, they send you an extra one. They've been doing that for years. I don't know if you can tell or not, but see, 1 or 2 of those springs are a little bit high. I'm going to see if I can take and push that wafer down a little bit better that it's resting on. There we go. I like them being down in there about as far as they can go. All right. Now all the springs are in there and they're all nice and even, or pretty even. So it's time to get the retainer bar. It's that one right there. I guess that's the part number for it. I never really paid attention to it before. This thing was packaged in 09. What was that, 09, 08? No, 09, 06, 21. Kind of unusual. be that old. All right, now there is a direction to this. You see there's a little lip over here. It has to go in this direction. You got to do this without knocking those springs out. That's why I like to try and get them down as far as I can. You get everything going about straight. Get everything going about straight. And you start pushing it in. And you'll get it most of the way in with your fingers, but do not press on the middle, because you'll put a bow in it that you won't be able to get back out. And then you take a screwdriver and you mash in real hard at each end. Alright, now you think that we're about done, right? But no, we want to make sure that's nice and smooth across there, and it is. And before we go crazy and stake it, we want to make sure that that bar drops in. And I can feel it's got a little bit of spring in it. The spring's supposed to be there, but it's right there where it's supposed to be. It goes flat, or nearly flat. And when you take the key out, it pops back out and it's solid. Key in, springy. It's good to go. Now what I got to do is I have to stake the ends of it. And I'm not going to take you over to do that because I got to go to a vise and set everything up, and I'm not going to move the camera again. But what I'll do is I'll take my screwdriver and I'll put it right there, right there, right there, and right there, and I'll tap it with the hammer lightly, and I'll stake that metal in to prevent this from coming back out. Because if you'll notice, these things, they've got a little notch on the end and a little bevel to them. Once you stake that end in, it can't back out. And you're not staking this, you're putting the stake in this, so this bar can't back out. Well, I'm going to turn you off for right now while I go do this, and I'll be right back. Now you can see the little stake marks in the aluminum that's going to hold that retainer in place. And you see that that's still nice and flat, so we're good to go there. Now the next thing that we do before we go to the truck is we mix up our tube of grease, because it separates a little bit over time. Tear it off. And we squeeze some down in the hole. I usually squeeze in about a quarter of it. And then you take and keep working it down in there till you get all pretty much off the face of it. Then you start putting this key in and out. Get that grease worked all the way in. That's feeling pretty good. So what we do now, we take and wipe the grease off the end and out of the inset of it, or the entrance of it. And take out any excess grease that's laying around. We clean it up so we won't have a mess on it when you take it out and stick it in our pocket. And I generally wipe the key off. Do it 2 or 3 times until it comes out and you don't feel any visible grease on it. You see, you still get a little bit of residual there, and we'll just take that off, and we should be about good to go from there. Now, with the rest of the grease, you take and put it around the outside. And I probably should have waited to do this because I got one more thing I want to do to the lock cylinder housing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the key back out and set it upside down right there. I grab a tool and then go out to the truck and do something that I always do. And what I always do is I take a file and I'll go out there, and the slot this bar goes into, I'll file a little bit of bevel on it so as it ages it still works. And what I do is I take a file and I file this edge a little bit, just a little bevel on it, just to break that edge. It makes it easier to turn, and particularly as it ages, it makes it easier to turn. The only deal is you got to work on getting all the little metal shavings out of there, and it just take your time and don't make a mess, and it'll go in there much smoother and easier. And that way, when you run into a situation where the keys wore out, which, let's face it, these things start to get 200,000 and more miles on them, the keys are actually wore out and they don't align the tumblers the way they should. But anyways, that's just one thing I do extra for the customers that makes it just a little bit easier, makes the repair last a good bit longer. Let me go get that lock cylinder and see about sticking it back in there. And see right here, you have to put a pick in there, and you have to turn this key to the crank position, pull the starter relay first, or put this down into drive. Let's see if I can do that. Push this into drive. You can turn this all the way over and it won't engage the starter, and it lets you, let's see if I can do this, push this down. You push that down and pull this out. You got that stuck. You pull this out, and like I said, that bar, retaining bar, was stuck under here. I had to push it in, but we're back the way it's supposed to be now. I got to turn it back up into park so I can turn the key off, and just like it's supposed to, nice and smooth, not a problem in the world. Probably have to wipe the key off a couple more times and then we'll be good to go. Have to write the ticket up and send this one on the way. Hope this helps. Sparky out.